I'm very happy to be talking to Helen MacDonald this morning. She's Assistant Deputy Minister for the area of telecommunications in Canada. Hello. Why do you find it useful to come to a conference like this? Because obviously Canada is a developed country and maybe in the area of development might not need a great deal of help, but is it useful to come here to share your experiences with other countries?
I think it's very useful to compare our experiences, to share best practices, but even as a developed country, I think one can continue to learn from other countries who perhaps, while starting a little later, start with newer technologies and discover new uses for these technologies. So we can certainly learn from conferences such as this.
Now you've just launched a consultation to try to plan out some sort of plan for your digital economy. Can you tell me how that's going?
It's interesting that it's never done when we're talking digital. One can always get faster and better. Canada, the Minister of Industry, Tony Clement, launched a week or so ago a nationwide consultation to try and set or determine if there was a consensus around what should we be aspiring to as a digital nation. What kind of infrastructure would we need for healthcare, for education, for economic development? What do small businesses need? What do the big businesses need? What do we need in rural areas? What do we need in urban? It's a broad-ranging consultation, and our hope is by this time next year we will have a new Canadian strategy for digital economy.
I mean, that's very interesting because Canada is a culturally very diverse country. Not only do you have indigenous groups within the country whose needs need to be met online, but also you've got the French and the English language. How do you ensure that all those people have access to government services and that there's adequate content for them online?
It's almost easier online to provide services, information, transactions in whatever language you might like. So that part is something that governments have been working at for the last decade. I think what we want to ensure is that citizens feel comfortable in getting their services from governments in that way. And I think we've got a little way to go to make it even simpler and easier, especially on those transactions that require a high degree of certainty, security. When you're dealing with your tax authority, you want to make sure, and they want to make sure, it is only you, it is not someone else. Since there's flows of money going in one direction or another.
Are there any lessons that Canada can pass on to the rest of the world? Because it's a very geographically quite a difficult country, and one of the issues we're dealing with at the moment in terms of broadband internet, high-speed internet rollout is getting internet to extremely remote places, which I imagine is something that you've managed to do.
I wish we've done, we haven't quite finished the job. 93% of Canadians have access to broadband, and that is broadband defined very modestly at 1.5 megabits per second download. Part of our consultations are looking at what is the speed? Can one ever set a speed that will hold for a period of time, or do you have to continually update your aspirations? And if the kinds of applications or uses that Canadians want to make of the broadband services require higher speeds, then we need to respond to that. We don't want to force people to move to urban areas in order to have a job, in order to have a good education, in order to have access to these opportunities. We want them to be able to flourish wherever they may be living. Our focus now is on First Nations, and particularly those in further away from the urban areas. And the interesting thing about providing a remote First Nations village with a community access point, they have to learn how to maintain the computers and the technology. That builds a skill within that community. That helps position them better for economic success.
And that's also quite an intriguing subject in itself, because if you're offering ICTs to a community that has been culturally quite distinct, there can be resistance within that community to having this sort of the modern world, as it were, flooding in. How have you dealt with this issue?
I wouldn't have said that was the problem. I think many of the First Nations communities are looking for economic opportunities. Yes, on their own terms. And they would see the internet as a way of providing better medical service without having to fly out, The educational opportunities that kids in downtown Toronto or Montreal might have, but they would not have. It provides them the opportunity to market whatever products or services they might be offering. So a lot of them specialize in a type of ecotourism. The internet is a way for them to attract people from around the world to their communities.